The very first line is the bubble dome. The bubble dome would have been a wonderful place to view their final approach to Mars. But everyone was going to be fucking in there. The bubble dome would have been a wonderful place to view their final approach to Mars. But they were going to be aerobraking to reduce speed, and the dome would be behind the heat shield that they now deployed. There would be no view. Damn it, dude, they ruined the bubble dome. Help. You're okay. Oh god, maybe you're not okay. Flail. Flail wildly. Don't hit anything. Don't knock anything over. But fly backwards and land on your back, and then do this. And scream loudly for help. If nobody's around to help though, just keep flailing until you feel better. Okay. So guys, are you ready to go to Mars? We're about to go to Mars. It's happening. It's fucking go time. But you can't look out the bubble dome. There will be no view. Aerobraking saved them from the necessity of carrying the enormous amount of fuel it would have taken to slow down. But. It was an extremely precise operation, and therefore dangerous. They had a leeway of less than a millisecond of arc, and so several days before MOI, the navigation team began to tweak their course with small burns on an almost hourly basis, fine-tuning the approach. Then, as they got closer, they stopped the ship's rotation. The return to weightlessness, even in the Tauruses, was a shock. Suddenly it came home to Maya that it wasn't just another simulation. She lofted through the windy air of the hallways, seeing everything from a strange new high perspective. And all of a sudden it felt real. Laurie, you too use small burns every hour to adjust your trajectory. Dude, so accurate. It's a very precise operation. And therefore dangerous. She slept in snatches, an hour here, 3 hours there. Every time she stirred, floating in her sleeping bag, she had a moment of disorientation, thinking that she was in Novi Mir again. And then she would remember, and adrenaline would knock her awake. Almost there. She would pull through the halls of the Taurus, pushing off the wall panels of brown and gold and bronze. On the bridge, she would check with Mary or Raoul or Rarina. Or someone else. Or someone else in navigation. Everything still on course. They were approaching Mars so quickly, it seemed they could see it expanding on the screens. They had to miss the planet by 30 kilometers, or about 1/10,000,000th of the distance they had traveled. No problem, Mary said, with a quick glance at Arcady. So far, they were on the Mantra run. That's what they call their perfect run. It's called the Mantra. No problem. Mary said, with a quick glance at Arcady. So far, they were on the mantra run, and hopefully none of his mad problems would crop up. The crew members not involved with navigation worked to batten down, preparing everything for the torque and bumps that 2.5G were sure to bring. Some of them got out on EVAs to deploy subsidiary heat shields and the like. There was a lot to do, and yet the days seemed long anyways. It was going to happen in the middle of the night. So that evening, all the lights stayed on, and no one went to bed. Everyone had a station, some on duty, most of them only waiting it out. Maya sat in her chair on the bridge, watching the screens and the monitors, thinking that they looked just like they would if it were all a simulation in Bacaner. Could they really be going into orbit around Mars? They could. The Ares hit Mars' thin, high atmosphere at 40,000 kilometers per hour, and instantly the ship was vibrating heavily. Maya's chair shaking her fast and hard, and there was a faint, low roar, as if they flew through a blast furnace. And it looked like that, too, because the screens were bursting with an intense pink-orange glow. Pink-orange? Compressed air was bouncing off the heat shields and blazing past all the exterior cameras, so that the whole bridge was tinged the color of Mars. The gravity returned with a vengeance. Maya's ribs were squeezed so hard that she had trouble breathing, and her vision was blurred. It hurt. They were plowing through the thin air at a speed and height calculated to put them into what aerodynamicists call transitional flow, a state halfway between free molecular flow and continuum flow. Free molecular flow would have been the preferred mode of travel, with the air that struck the heat shield moved to the sides, and the resulting vacuum refilled mostly by molecular diffusion. But they were moving too fast for that, and they could only just barely avoid the tremendous heat of continuum flow, in which air would have moved over the shield and ship as part of a wave action. The best that they could do was to take the highest possible course that would slow them enough, and this put them into transitional flow, which vacillated between free molecular and continuum flow, making for a bumpy ride. And there lay the danger. If they were to hit a high-pressure cell in the Martian atmosphere, where heat or vibration or G-forces caused some sensitive mechanism to break, then they would be cast into one of Arcady's nightmares at the very time they were crushed in their chairs, weighing 400 pounds apiece, which was something that Arcady had never been able to simulate very well. In the real world, Maya thought grimly, At the moment when they were most vulnerable to danger, they were also the most helpless to deal with it. But, as fate would have it, that's absolutely not true. I can't read chat. You're so stupid sometimes, chat. But as fate would have it, Martian stratospheric weather was stable, and they remained on the Mantra Run, which in actuality turned out to be a roaring, shuddering, breath-robbing 8 minutes. No hour Maya could remember had lasted as long. Sensors showed that the main heat shield had risen to 600 degrees Kelvin. And then the vibration stopped. The roar ended. They had skipped out of the atmosphere after skidding around half the planet. After skidding around a quarter of the planet. They had decelerated by some 20,000 kilometers an hour. And the heat shield's temperature had risen to 710 degrees Kelvin. 710 Kelvin? Okay, thank you for that. That's Kevin's cooler cousin. Had risen to 710 Kelvin. It's getting hot in here, actually. The heat shield had risen to 710 Kelvin, very near its limit. But the method had worked. All was still. They floated, weightless again, held down by their chair straps. It felt as though they had stopped moving entirely, as if they were floating in pure silence. Unsteadily, they unstrapped themselves, floated like ghosts around the cool air of the rooms, an airy, faint roar sounding in their ears, emphasizing the silence. They were talking too loudly, shaking each other's hands. 813F isn't that hot. I guess if it's the limit of the heat shield, then it's too hot. Or nearly the limit of the heat shield protecting your spaceship, then that is too hot. They were talking too loudly, shaking each other's hands. Maya felt dazed, and she couldn't understand what people were saying to her. Not because she couldn't hear them, but because she wasn't paying attention. 12 weightless hours later, their new course led them to a periapsis. 12 weightless hours later, their new course led them to a periapsis 35,000 kilometers from Mars. They fired the main rockets for a brief thrust, increasing their speed by about 100 kilometers an hour. After that, they were pulled towards Mars again, carving an ellipse that would bring them back to within 500 kilometers of the surface. They were in Martian orbit. Woo! They made it. Periapsis, furthest point away. It's the furthest point in an elliptical orbit. Cool. That's good to know. Figured it was something like that. like had to do parry. Had to parry them. Periapsis. 35,000 kilometers from Mars. And there they fired the main rockets for a brief thrust, increasing their speed by about 100 kilometers an hour. And after that, they were pulled towards Mars again, carving an ellipse that would bring them back to within 500 kilometers of the surface. They were in Martian orbit. Fuck yeah, dude. Hell yeah. Fucking get the champagne. We got some tunnels to dig. That was probably too close to the mic. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for destroying everybody's ears, including my own, if it makes you feel better. Cheers. Alright, good. That's why you don't listen to streams with headphones. It's actually just common